Chi East Chamber of Commerce, I'm Wayne Lawrence. Is owning your own business a blessing or curse? We're going to find out today. I've got John Kerek with us from Kerek Industries. How are you doing, John?
I'm good, Wayne. Thanks for having me.
Good, good. In full disclosure, John's a close friend of mine. We've known each other for quite some time. We've had a lot of conversation about business over time, too.
We have.
Yeah,
definitely.
and I thought it'd be important for the viewers and listeners to kind of hear your story because I think it's fascinating.
Thank you.
So, of course, I've gone to your website and taken a look at things, and you tune, drill, mill, and I think it says any imaginable part. Tell us about that. What does that mean?
Sure. We are basically a custom manufacturer. Somebody will bring a print to us, bring a part to us, and say, can you do this? And we find a way.
Where are you located? Tell us a little bit about
We're right here in Mayfield Village, right off of 271 in Wilson Mills. We have 10,000 square feet facility with probably 13, 14 machines right now.
So what are the core markets and industries that you target? So, you make these things. I'll call them widgets, even though it's not an ad.
Yes.
And they're used in production somewhere. They're used in a final product. Give an example what that is.
There's a long list. We make some components for electronics, bigger industrial switches.
Okay.
We make parts for offshore drilling equipment. So it's a long list. And I couldn't even come off the top of my head with all of them. But
at one point, didn't you have a part for a bow?
We did.
Yeah, you still do?
We do.
Okay.
Right now, yes.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. So when I was growing up, I remember at some point someone said, "What are you going to do in life?" I go, "I'm a create widgets." So you're the widget man, right? You actually
pretty much. That's what we do. Yes.
All right. And how long have you been doing it? How long have you been in business?
Oh, now I'm almost 30 years.
Wow.
The company's been in business since 1946, though.
Okay.
So, it started by my grandfather.
Okay. So you started when you were in diapers, of course, right?
Pretty much, yes.
Look how
It
much
was
older than that.
every weekend, every day after school, all breaks, all that. Yes.
All right. And we're going to touch upon that succession plan because I know it's the third generation, which is really
It is.
important from that standpoint. And how many employees do you have at this point?
We have right around 10.
10. Okay. Good sized company. Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me, I got to ask the question. We're going to get started. So has owning your own business, has it been a blessing or curse?
Right? The $60 million question.
Is that what I'm going to get?
Yes, right? Probably a little bit of both, right?
Okay.
For the most part, definitely a blessing. You get to decide how hard you want to work in order to make the life that you want to make.
Yeah.
Right? I think the harder part comes when you realize that you're responsible for everybody else. Their ability to make an income, their ability to make a living in the life they want. So knowing that's the hard part that sits on the back, especially when you run into events like COVID, 9/11, 2008, when the economy really just takes its little turn that you just did not see coming at all.
Right.
And then you're struggling to make your ends meet, and obviously then it impacts your employees as well.
Okay.
So that's the harder part.
So the company's been in business for over 70 years, you said, right? Your grandfather started the company. Has it been easier because you have a brand name to start, or has it been more challenging because you've had, succession plan with different ideas? I mean, what has that transition been like?
Well, I think it depends on how the succession planning is executed.
Sure.
And discussed. There are times in my transition from my father that things were necessarily always communicated the way that I guess would have expected. So if you drop the ball in that area, then it takes a little bit longer to recover, right?
Gotcha.
But if you can really get out there and get ahead of the transition and make sure that everybody's on the same page, I think it can go really smooth. And it's definitely easier to take over a business that is in existence rather than step in the front door of something that has never been opened before, right? That is definitely a blessing on my side to see that.
So if I can just go a little bit deeper in that. So when you took over the company from your dad, I have to assume that, things were either working or not working, but it was based on a lot of his decisions. And then you come in with fresh ideas, maybe those that are supported and not supported. And how did that go? At some point, did you have to just say, well, hey, I love you, but, here's the direction we're going into at this point?
There is definitely moments like that. I was definitely the beneficiary of a father who saw it early and said, John, you're going to find your own way.
Good.
Do it your way.
Okay.
That didn't mean that after that conversation, there weren't still times where I felt like he should be giving me a little more direction,
Yeah.
giving me a little bit more plan. But at the same time, you find your way. You
Okay.
really do. Everybody has their own style,
Yeah.
their own expectations, their own areas that are important to them.
Yeah. And you and I both know that as a business owner, you have to find your way. you just do. You have to figure it out one way or the other, or you just won't be in business.
Correct.
So, and I don't, it doesn't matter how long a company's been around. There's been companies that have been around for 100, 150 years that no longer exist. I mean, at some point, you've got to make your decisions and follow that path. And no, hopefully it turns out well for you. And I'm glad to hear things are going well for you. But you did touch upon those really trying times. So that was a curse. I mean, when you're talking about like 2008, the collapse, the pandemic, how did you get through that? And what are some of the pivots, I guess? That's the popular word. How did you get through it? Yep.
I think the easy thing to say is that you just work harder, right?
Oh, wow. Okay.
My grandfather had two sayings for us when we were kids growing up. He said, it takes 10% inspiration, 90% perspiration, and no goof off time. Right? So when you struggle,
I love that. Yeah.
just go get it.
Yeah.
Right? Work harder.
Yeah.
And the other one was luck. It takes luck. And he's not talking 4-leaf clover kind of luck.
Yeah.
It's a little acronym, right? L is for labor, U is for under, C is for correct, and K is for knowledge. Labor, under, correct, knowledge.
Wow.
So don't just work hard, work smart.
Yeah.
Know what you're working on, make your efforts count.
Oh, I love that.
So-
I love that. People are going to really gravitate to that. I'm going to start using that actually. So, so hopefully you don't mind, right?
No, not at all. Not at
I
all.
won't make it my idea, but I think it's perfect in talking to businesses.
Yeah.
And that's what you did. You just worked harder. I mean,
Right.
the business is what, a 24/7? You're always thinking about it, even though you don't want to. But I mean, are you always kind of engaged in your business one way or the other?
Always.
Yeah.
And it's not a 9 to 5 deal.
Yeah.
You're going to be called upon when you're on vacation. You're going to be called upon on a weekend.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if your business is only a Monday to Friday deal. You're still going to be working on off hours.
Okay.
So you just got to be ready.
So, how do you have a support network of people that you can talk to? I mean,
Sure.
How do you go through those challenging times? Because we, as business owners, we can just internalize it, and that's not healthy.
Right,
But at
right.
some point, we got to talk to others. What do you do?
Absolutely. It is talking to family and friends. It's
Yeah.
talking to people that are in business, whether it's the same size or same industry.
Yeah.
It's making sure that you get a broad perspective on it
Yeah.
so that you can then say, okay, how do I adapt that to me?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Is there a better way to be doing what I do?
Right. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Well, I tend to grab a bourbon and play golf with a good buddy of mine named John
Yeah.
Kerek.
Right. Yeah. Those are good things.
And
Yeah.
then over 18 holes, you can cover, the next 2 years of business, which is fantastic.
Yes.
So because it's precision machinery, right?
Correct.
So therefore, you've got to have the people who are working the machines, I assumed are skilled labor. They got to
Absolutely.
kind of know what they're doing. How do you find them? And do you find them already trained, and how do you train them? And then more importantly, after you train them, because you've made that investment of time to find them and train them, how do you retain them?
Sure. Yeah, it's a difficult time right now for sure.
Yeah.
There's not as many skilled labor people out there, and we've had to then turn around and use our equipment and technology to our advantage rather than count on people. So we actually have invested in they're called cobots. They're very similar to a robot, just a robotic arm that loads machines, and we can do more with less people at the moment. But when we do hire people, we're looking at people that fit our culture. We're looking at people that will blend in with everybody we have and will come to work and do what we need to do. Because it's a different community. I mean, in a bigger business, there's lots of people and lots of support. We don't have that. We bring you in, we teach you what to do,
Yeah.
and we expect you to go do that. So it's a little bit harder.
Okay.
But when we do, retaining them, we've been lucky. People stay for long periods of time.
Good. Good.
In that aspect, it's really just treating people like people.
Okay.
Understanding what they're going through when
Well,
times
and-
get tough.
And these cobots, I mean, they're that's fascinating in itself because you have an option. You can run a second shift. I think at one point you even tried to run a second shift or even a third shift because production,
Correct.
you need the production help, but couldn't find the right labor or skilled
Yes.
labor to do so. So you made this investment in the cobots. How many do you have now?
We have two.
Two of them?
There's a plan to bring on a third
Okay.
at the moment. And that is exactly why we have them. We were looking for labor. We were looking to start a second shift, and we could not find people to
Okay.
get there. You have to have at least two people on shift for safety reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And then from that aspect, usually you want to have a third because somebody can get sick, somebody could get called off. We all live our lives and things happen.
Oh, sure.
So,
Absolutely.
especially vacation, right? That's the other one. So but we couldn't find that mix. So we started going to trade shows and we're looking at things and we're like, I think we can make this work.
Okay.
And now we can turn off the lights when we leave at 3:30 and we can come in at 6 o'clock in the morning and it's still going.
Yeah. Okay.
So
wow, that's fantastic.
it does a great
So
job.
do they operate during your regular when everybody else is there, or only if someone's not there?
No, we operate them all the time.
24/7?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, they're around the clock. As long as we can present material, they can keep running.
Okay.
So that's the only challenge.
What's the difference between a cobot and a robot?
So the difference is really in how a cobot is placed on the floor. It is meant to work around us without caging. The cage around a robot is there because it will basically pin you against a wall and not care. Where the cobot, when it bumps into something, it stops. It says, I can't go any further. It has a sensor into it, so it protects us from getting really hurt.
And so obviously you looked at, I mean, that's a financial investment. You just don't go down to the Dollar Tree store. And
Right. No, it's not.
There's
You're
a
not
heck of an
picking it up.
investment there. So apparently, there was a financial analysis to say, hey, listen, when you compare to labor costs, training costs, and increase in production, this makes sense. How did you come to that decision? I mean, did you have an advisory crew? How'd you make that decision to get them?
It was really the research involved in how does the machine run and how does the robot support.
Yeah.
Right. So realizing that we could run throughout the night as long as we could find a way to present material made the solution pretty easy to understand from a cost side. You look at the cost of an employee, like you were saying, and then the cost of training and healthcare and anything else that goes into it, and saying, okay, this investment, 2-3 years, whatever it is, it will pay itself back and we'll be on our way.
Okay.
So it really was fairly easy. Machines have come a long way in their technologies as well so that we can not run scrap parts when we're not there. There's safety features to check for broken tools, make sure sizes are on, intolerance. Those kind of things have really come a long way from the time I started in business when things were more mechanical. CNCs were around, but just not as prevalent. So, yeah.
So during the pandemic, of course, we all face a source of supply problem. Did you face it? And then how have you been able to adjust with your production schedule based on that?
Sure. COVID was definitely interesting.
Yeah.
Supplies were very long. Things that we would normally buy off the shelf and buy 100 bars of, we would expect the next day we're taking like 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So you really just had to change your mindset on when you were ordering things.
Okay.
Instead of waiting that period of time, you're making sure it was in so that you could continue your deliveries going forward. And a lot of times people were bringing things back in from offshore because they couldn't get the deliveries when everything was backed up in California and all the boats were off the coast. So they were ordering in-house or in the country to get things going on their end.
Yeah. Did you find your customers were pretty understanding of the fact that everybody's facing this, or did you lose or gain customers because of it?
Yes, I would say we gained.
Okay.
Honestly. And again, a little bit to what I was speaking of before with the things not being able to get delivered on shore.
Okay, gotcha.
People were saying, I need to make this now. I need 1,000 of these. I need 100 of these.
Okay.
So we gained some customers in that respect. But everybody was very understanding. Everybody was in the same boat.
Yeah.
Everybody knew there were people that didn't want to come to work, right? Afraid for their lives. That's real.
Absolutely.
I was one of them. I stayed home for 3 months.
Yeah.
Being afraid to step foot out the door.
Right.
But at the same time, you're, a necessary business to help things run. We were making, at that time, some light disinfection equipment parts that were helping kill COVID. So
good.
That was definitely one of the events we were like, okay, we've got to be here and we need everybody on staff as much as possible. But we had a couple people that definitely stayed home and needed to make sure their lives were okay.
Exactly.
So it's very understanding. Everyone has worked together well.
As you were trying to navigate, that whole process of just the source of supply, where it's coming from, and what type of materials? Is steel, aluminum? What materials would you buy?
So it's steel, stainless, aluminums, plastics, brass, copper. So we're pretty covering the board.
So typically, if you're doing that, and you're also, of course, giving out, quotes on, your product, your services. How do you, so your buy-in has to be great. That's where you make your money, on the buy-in, right, of the materials used, or is it less or more sophisticated than that part of it?
and how we make money. So that I guess.
Yeah. Like, as you're buying steel, I mean, you have to buy it at the right price and sell it the right. I mean, if you decide that you're going to agree to an order and the price of steel goes up by 40% and it's based on steel, you've got a problem, right?
Yeah, definitely. That was definitely the case throughout COVID, because a lot of times we'll take blanket orders, right, for an entire year. So if we take an order in January, COVID hits in March, in April, right? And we're running those parts in the later half of the year when prices spike. It's kind of an eye-opener. Some customers are going to be very demanding and require you to stick to what you have. Others are a little more lenient and are allowing you to adjust prices based on what they know they're dealing with at the same time.
You ship overseas as well, or is it all domestic?
Every now and then we have one or two parts that will go overseas, but for the most part, we're just continental.
And that's got to have its own unique challenges of
it
shipping
does.
and, tariffs and things like that. So, so what keeps you up at night? I mean, the robots are running. But what keeps you up at night?
For the most part, I've reached the point where I sleep well. I would say if I'm losing sleep, I'm thinking about what's next. And it's how do we get better? What's the next product? What's the next machine implementation? How do we stay ahead of the competition? Because if we're not getting better, we're just going to be falling behind. So that's usually what my brain is working on when I'm up.
And you said it's both a blessing and curse, and you talked a little bit about blessing, but what is the true advantage in your mind of owning your own company? I know you worked with your family for years, but you still had a decision as to whether or not you were going to continue on the legacy or you're going to move forward. So what's been the blessing about that decision?
I guess it's implementing the things that are your own initiative, right? Deciding what you're going to do and deciding to implement the cobots, deciding to stay with all CNCs rather than the mechanicals that we had. That's the blessing, is you're driving the train, right? You're deciding what's the most important thing. So that's the advantage for me. Having someone tell me what to do, if I didn't agree with it, is a harder thing. I mean, our customers are basically our bosses, right? They tell us when things need to be delivered and when things need to get there and for what price, basically.
I mean, are you an engineer background by trade, or?
I am not an engineer background.
So who figures that out then?
It's a learned.
Oh, okay.
It's a learned item, I guess, would be the best way to describe that. I was a history major, so obviously nothing to do with metals and tooling, anything in that engineering world. But I mean, obviously, having grown up in it, I was around it all the time. I was understanding, cutting tips and rakes and round edges, and what tools need to go where. I learned that probably when I was 13, being around the shop floor cleaning bathrooms, right? The guys really took their time to come out and train me and teach me.
So are you at the point now where you're thinking about your own succession plan, or you just, because you're young still, of course, or, are you still just trying to work on that strategic plan you have in terms of the company, and then, do that down the road? Where are you at this point?
Right. I think you have to be on top of that always. And again, I probably thought about it when I was 40. I'm thinking about it today. It's where does it go? How far do I build it? Is it something where I get acquired? Is it something that I hand off to a family member? I guess I don't have all the answers right now. I don't know that I ever will.
Right.
I guess I need to. Yeah. But yes, it is always on your brain.
Okay.
Somebody needs to take over because eventually, hopefully, we retire and go live the dream that everybody wants, right? Sitting on a beach somewhere and play some golf.
As your grandpa did.
Right.
Dad did, et cetera.
Absolutely.
From that standpoint, just, being able, and they probably struggle with it as well, too. I mean, they finally want to go on and live their life. So for anyone watching right now, everyone wonders if they should get in business. Then they wonder what type of business they should get in. What advice would you give them in terms of, getting into business, or if they're facing challenges, keeping, the faith and just, as you said, you got to work through it. You got to just work harder. I mean, what advice do you give someone?
It is be ready to work. I mean, sorry if that sounds like Kevin Stefanski at the moment, right? Put in the work. It's going to take a minute.
Exactly.
You need to do that. It is what we, as business owners, that's how we survive. That's how you succeed. It doesn't have to be hard. It has to be smart. So taking advantage of the moment that you have to do what you want to do is a fantastic opportunity. I think it's something that I wish everybody could experience.
Yeah.
It's not for everybody.
Okay.
In that sense. So the advice definitely would be to be prepared to work and don't think of it as I'm going to go in, I'm going to get off, and I'm going to stop.
Yeah.
Right.
What do you do for fun? Let's just get away from business a little bit. What do you do when you're not?
Well, bourbon and golf have come up, so those were definitely on top of the list.
Exactly. I have a tea time today after this too. So for you,
there you go. Good. Yeah. After that, I love nature. So getting out and hiking.
Okay.
I own a kayak, so I get out on a river with my wife.
Okay.
Definitely just kind of kick back, find things that are a little bit more relaxing.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if golf fits that category sometimes, but it's.
Yeah, unless you're playing with me, and then you're very relaxed because I'm so bad.
Well, that's where the bourbon comes in.
Put it out there on camera that you're a great golfer. It's fun. Well, that's good, too, because that goes back to that work-life balance as well, too. I mean, even on a golf course, even if you talk business, it's in a more relaxing manner or method. Yes. So it's good to kind of get away from all that stuff. Hey, John, I really appreciate the conversation. Thanks for coming, sharing your viewpoint, telling your story. I think it's fascinating. And I just wish you to continue wishing you the best of luck. And I look forward to our next bourbon and golf. All right.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks. Hey, if you like this episode, don't forget to comment, like, and share.
This podcast was made possible with the support of our sponsors. Find more ways to grow at chieast.org.